still making a good deal of money. So this is the investment system. It's regulated, and there are credit rating agencies. We can engage with it. Your vote at these company AGMs, whether you knew it or not, is voting on the board structure, the board pay, the whether or not there's a climate report, actually, now often gets put to the vote. And these are your votes, actually. A team in the business I work in does 73,000 votes a year across nearly 6,000 businesses. And you'll probably have hundreds of companies in your pension scheme. So these votes are actually your money, your votes. And if you haven't asked, perhaps, that's another thing. If you're looking for tangible action that you can take, just two things. If you have a financial advisor, ask the financial advisor if the fund manager who's running your money takes this stuff seriously. And if so, ask for a report. And then have a look at it and give them feedback. Challenge the chief executive, secondly. Challenge the chief executive of the fund managers that run your money. I'm not going to stand here and ask you to move your money into an ethical fund. That's your choice. But if you don't want to move the money, you can always challenge and always look for transparency and hold the managers to account. It is your money. It is a massive opportunity. Now, in closing, because I want to leave time for a Q&A, and I've got lots of questions for you lot too. But for the we every year we do a study and we offer it to the governments about how they might change global markets and policy. This study was last year, Act Now, and if you're interested in this diagram and you want more of an explanation, it is in that document. Google Aviva and Act Now. And if you want more information about that system and how it works, and you want to know how to hold it to account more, then it's in this document, which we wrote for the United Nations when they were doing the Sustainable Development Goals. We did that in 2013. The SDGs were signed off in 2015. That's called a Roadmap for Sustainable Capital Markets. It's your money. Money talks. If you care about this, engage with the system and make sure your money is promoting the kind of future you really want to bequeath to your children and grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Steve, thank you very much. Some really sobering thoughts in there, not least of which, what is your money saying on your behalf? I think mine is saying it's quite lonely. I also think quadrillion could be my favourite word. So we've got to the end of our speakers, and we've had a bit of a whistle-stop tour across, as I said at the beginning, all Waygood buildings today in the global financial markets. And now is your turn, so we'd like to move on and take some questions. We've got two roving mics, please put up your hand and we'll pick up the questions. Gentleman over here is first up.
Good evening, and thank you very much for a fascinating overview of the challenges that we're all facing. So three quick fire questions, if I may. First to Ollie, who I know, and as a councillor over in Winchester, I'm very keen to understand, I'll take the challenge, local area energy plans. I think there's about 20 local authorities who've done this. I wonder if you could indicate what guidance or what sort of standards we should be looking for, and is there an exemplar you might point us to? My next question, very quickly to Steve at Aviva, is when I'm looking at my investments, I'm thinking about ESG. Is there a particular environmental, social, governance standard that I should be alighting on? And my third and final question for Professor at Portsmouth University on the build side. Yes, powering down an installation, great. The trouble is we could be be solving one problem, but creating another. Particularly we don't think about the nature-based installation materials and some of the other things and resources that we're using. And I wonder again, what your view is on how quickly the industry is going to change. It seems very conservative. We're still using fossil fuel insulation. Cellotex is a little rock walls in the school, and that doesn't seem credible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 3, advice of 1. So, let's take more there, Ollie.
Local area energy plans.
Yes,
there's 5 good local area energy plans in the country at the moment, and they're mainly in the main cities like Manchester, Lancaster are just about to do one, which is a district where they're going to have the Eden of the North, so it's a really good tie to that authority. And also Yorkshire, that's become a combined authority, which is great to see. Peterborough has a good one, really good one to read. And then also the Welsh Government now, all hail to Wales, has made local energy planning law. So every council in Wales has to develop a local energy plan at the moment. To be honest with you, it's a watching brief. It's evolving really quickly. Sorry, I should mention Cornwall's local energy plan. They're the next one to go. And what they're doing, they're combining local air energy planning with nature adaptation. So they're going to do both together, which is really, really good to see. And for anybody to explain local energy planning very quickly, that's where you look at a local area, it could be Petersfield, and you go, what is the energy network look like? Where could I connect renewables? Where is the capacity? So that's important. And so it's evolving. So the electricity networks are evolving very quickly. They're realising that there's no capacity in this region. If I wanted to build large-scale renewables here, they're talking about 2036. Yeah. So what we need to do is have these local energy plans, and also the Skidmore report that Kat mentioned at the beginning, that talks about, the recent report talks about every place doing local energy plans. So yeah, there are examples, I can share them with you, but those are the main ones.
Thank you.
Sorry, Steve, the next question was for you, and it was about when looking at investments, is there a particular standard for ESG that we could look to as an example?
Thank you very much. I went to Peter Simmons, so it's very nice to be asked a question by a councillor from Winchester. There are three sources of different standards. One is the UN, another is the European Commission, and a third, the UK government through the Financial Conduct Authority, is building them. There are a few. The easiest thing to do, though, would be to find out if the manager in question has, the Financial Reporting Council has set up a stewardship code. So ask, have they endorsed the stewardship code, and ask if they have for the copy of the report that they submitted to the FRC. It should be on their website, so a stewardship report. And then you can compare them and see what's being done. And some of them are really good, some of them not. Many of them.
Great, thanks.
And Mark, the question to you is, fossil fuel installation, is it a good thing? Should we be moving away from it?
No, I think you touch on a really important issue, and I think it sort of goes back to what I think I was saying about cancellation of the Green Deal. So there was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of investment going on to create some alternative products probably 10 years ago, and a lot of enthusiasm for that scheme, and I think we could have made real headway. The cancellation of that actually stripped out a lot of the confidence in people to invest in some of those novel products, and I think we're kind of reaping the reward of that, unfortunately. That policy uncertainty, I think, has meant people haven't invested in those alternative products as much as they could have done, and it is a real challenge. And so it's a kind of good academic answer. Whether or not you use them depends on the nature of the demand you're trying to reduce. If over the whole life of that product you save CO2, you save energy, then perhaps it's worth it. But you have to make it, it's not a simple one-size-fits answer. It does depend, is what I would say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. We'll take another question. Have you got any other hands? Yes.
My question, I think, concerns two of you, and the feedback I'm getting about the availability of power in the future is that there simply won't be enough of it. And as air conditioning becomes more and more in demand, which it will do very, very fast once these temperatures go up, and that's certainly beginning to affect the property markets. And on the other hand, you've got electric vehicles. Both of those two are going to increase the consumption of electricity by an enormous amount. I love the idea of the local community providing it or organising it, but are we actually going to have enough power to keep the show on the road in the direction of travel which we are taking. Renewable power or other. What are we going to do if it actually runs out and the power strikes become a permanent part of our lives?
Who would like to start on that? Steve.
The main point I make is that it's not an engineering challenge, it's a political challenge, it's a political choice. I mentioned that the UK now has the largest offshore wind farms in the world. We had almost none pre-2008, and the ones we had were very small. Denmark had the biggest one in the world back then. So a combination of the legislative framework being put in place and political will and public will behind it has seen a very substantial shift. The potential for renewables to generate a lot more across the UK is enormous. So I really don't think it's engineering, it is political. But
So just not to slightly disagree with you. I think that we do have an opportunity to reduce our reliance on air conditioning in the built environment. I think we can do an enormous amount with decent passive design by using the thermal properties of our materials to really mediate those interior environments. And we can see examples around the world where vernacular styles of architecture, not primitive, but vernacular styles of architecture have allowed us to live in quite extreme conditions. Now, I'm not saying we accept all of those conditions, but there is an enormous amount we can do just through some reasonably basic passive design principles and good quality construction. So I don't think we should be thinking about we will have to rely on air conditioning as much as perhaps you think we should.
I'll just the chairman of UK Power Network stood up when he launched the distribution service operator. So they're changing the way electricity networks are going to have to work so that they can play in this market. And immediately he said 30% of my electricity in UK Power Networks, so that's in London, East Anglia and the South East, is not used in the system. And so we've got to get really smart and open our minds to it, and to bring that down to smaller, like, let's say an industrial estate, a school, you know, like this place, Beadles, you know, think about your energy as one. And last thing, my village, 800 homes, 80% on oil, 10 years ago. We modelled the village and dived in deep, and we found that 40% of the electricity is not being used, and we can look and use it more smarter. So we need government to help us with that, and Ofgem, the regulator. So yeah, it's hope.
Right, no, over this side, over here. So we've got two questions over here. I'll take the lady at the back first.
Yes, my question is about educating the future generation. You mentioned about teaching about pensions a long time ago. So what is being done to link community energy with the future generations, like the future kids that are, you know, thinking about their future careers? So is there opportunities then for schools then to go and actually visit these schemes, so then they will probably shape what they do then in the future?
Is that yours?
Yeah, I can start. Pass on to Steve.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I'm really excited that we've got, sorry, I'm from Lewis, so the other end of the national park. We've been doing this for like 15 years, so we've got a whole network of energy champions. We've got renewable projects around the village. We've got Durham coming down, the county of Durham, with 20 towns and villages to come and have a look. So, but in the same way, schools can come and do that. And what I'm seeing, and because my kids are like 18 and 19, is that they're really into this whole space, but also university leaders, you know, they're learning about climate literacy, they're doing sustainability projects, and they want to be in this space. So yeah, Leah, let's get them out of the schools visiting local projects and find out, and get them to do their own community energy businesses It's a really easy model to follow.
Yeah, just add a couple of things to that. One of the great things about the potential, the potential graph I showed there for community energy is that there's so much potential on the roofs of public buildings, and obviously one type of public building of which there is a lot of roof are schools. And what we've seen, and in UK as well as other countries, is when you do have a community scheme that uses the roof of a school, much more likely, not in every situation, but often, it leads to a lot more interest from the students and a very obvious vehicle to teach them in a more practical way. And the other point I'd make, I think a lot has already happened in terms of what the children of today get taught and are aware of and are interested in. My fiance happens to be a geography secondary school teacher, and it's amazing the lessons and the interest that she gets from her pupils in comparison to certainly when I was at school. So I do think there's a lot of hope there.
There's another gentleman over here, then we'll come to the gentleman in the front.
Thank you, and a very interesting evening, all of you, thank you. I'm interested in community production of energy, and I'm part of a voluntary group in a village very close to here. And I just wonder if there are any best practice templates out there or resources. You said there's about 400 community energy groups, and we're finding it really difficult to get going. So if there's any advice on that, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
So it depends what you want to do, really. The powering up and the powering down. A lot of the work that we do, we're supporting nearly 50 community energy groups around the country, up in as far as Lancaster, further north, Northumberland, as well as in the south east. And at the moment, the best way to work is to cluster, is to grow your governance. Don't be isolated as a parish community, but actually join with other communities. And I think that's what, Energize South Downs have done a really good job of that here with Energy Auction as well. So, perhaps if you feel isolated, join another group or connect with the sector and find out who else is doing what you're interested in and connect with them. So, because we're all cooperatives, so communities essentially need to work together.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Just the gentleman in the front. Wait until you get the microphone. Great, thanks.
I'll stand up and shout. I've read that there are adverse effects on wildlife from wind farms. What is being done to minimise that detrimental effect?
Have we got start on that? Steve?
I think the first thing to be very clear on is that there's adverse effects on generating any form of energy. So we have, as a sort of society, we have a choice on how we produce our energy. Obviously, fossil fuel burning is by far and away the most detrimental on wildlife by an enormous margin, and the evidence on that's abundant. I would point to statements from organisations like the RSPB, who are obviously in favour of renewable generation in general, and have explicitly come out in favour of more wind turbines, both onshore and offshore, because they obviously have, they see the choice as well. But that said, we also have a planning system for a reason, and when it comes to turbines, the idea is to make sure they're sited in places that are going to be as appropriate as possible to minimise damage as possible. But what I do think has been a shame in the past is to not talk about it as a sort of an honest and difficult choice that we just have to make, and that we're, as a society, just trying to make together. The final thing I'd mention as well, I think it's very interesting, particularly with regards to what's happened in the UK over recent decades. If you look at Denmark, there are rules in Denmark that say that wherever generation, it's particularly onshore turbines that see this, is sited, a portion of the profits must go to the local area. And in Denmark, you get campaigns of people in the town saying, please build it here, because they know that they're going to benefit significantly. And I think that's so interesting if you compare that to obviously the difference you get. And I completely relate to people who see, turbines or whatever other infrastructure being built locally and see no local benefit. And one of the great things of community schemes is you can see you're getting the local benefit.
Thank you. Do you want to ask that? I think there's a gentleman back there. Okay.
Thank you. Very, very interesting talk. From all of you, by the way. We've heard from Aviva that the climate is definitely going to change, and we're in the middle of the South Downs National Park. And the planning policy here is for landscape-led design. But we know that we have to plan for a future that's going to be very different, and climate is going to be very different. And precedent is used throughout all planning policy. So what we're finding, and I'm an architect, is we're finding that actually planners are the #1 problem in this part of the world. The South Downs National Park. And I want to ask a quick question to the audience first. Any planners here? Put your hand up. Anyone? Are you from the South Downs National Park?
No, but I am an architect and I am on the South Downs planning design panel.
Okay, well, so am I. So that's not counting because you're not actually employed by them.
I'm sure I know you, but there's lights behind you, so I can't.
My main point is that planning is the #1 obstacle to renewable energy schemes. There are virtually very, very, very few examples of building integrated renewable energy systems within the national park. It's a desert, and the national park is not going to look any different. It's not going to look the same if climate change continues at its current rate. So, what does the panel think we can do around here to get planners to rethink the climate emergency?
Steve, which who's starting? I'll leave the start, just a small question.
Yeah, very quickly, yeah. I think #1, I heard a Baroness speak, who's very clever on national infrastructure. And she said there's one thing that the government should invest in planners, more planners across all the